Hey everybody, welcome to Read It Again's online author series. Hey Jen, what's happening today? Is there something important happening today?
It's just a regular old Tuesday. Nothing. No, that is not true. The third book in my 5-book series released today. So, right there over your shoulder, I see it. The Memory of Souls, in which I once again do things apparently you're not supposed to do with fantasy books.
So apparently Jen called our store and told Nicole, her manager, that when you read this one, remember it is a 5-book series and not a trilogy.
Yes, please do not think the series ends here. That would be really bad.
We were talking. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say, I've had people come up to me and get very, very angry.
That's good. It's good to have reactions or feelings, yes, emotions from your readers. You do that. You're a writer. You're like a puppet master of emotion.
We live off of tears.
Yeah. Drink them. Mm-hmm.
I always used to make fun of writers that made that joke. I was like, oh, come on, that's not true.
Bathe in them. That's where you get your creative juices going.
But we want an emotional response, and tears are an emotional response.
Mm-hmm.
We can't have laughter; we'll have tears.
Okay, let me do my intro. BT Dubs. Jen is officially our first returning online author event author. So I think we can call you a regular now.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Okay. Jenn Lyons was a graphic artist and illustrator for 20 years. I got this from you, so if there's anything wrong in here, that it's your fault.
It's my fault. Yeah.
Yeah, but if I pronounce it wrong, that's my fault. Okay. 20 years and has worked in video games for a decade. She previously worked on The Saboteur and Lord of the Rings Conquest at EA Games. She's based out of Atlanta, Georgia. Her Course of Dragon saga begins with Rune of Kings, called Sheer Effervescent Joy by New York Times Book Review, followed by The Name of All Things, and continues the newest volume. I'm pointing my line and following it. The Memory of Souls, coming out August from Tor Books. You can follow her on Twitter, Jenn Lyons Author, or visit her at jennlyons.com.
Yeah, that one's pretty easy.
Okay, good. Yeah, some of these are pretty bad. Actually, there was a whole nother paragraph that I could have read because it just kept going in the bio.
Well, there's different ones on my website. I have different lengths, so you can pick and choose.
So you were quoted as saying, no, you didn't quote. It was said about your books, one of the most immersive new fantasy series for 2019, and newest A Choir of Dragon saga returns. Okay, that was all I had to say.
Sure. People said very, very nice things about the first book.
By the way, if you guys have a comment, please post it, and I will. Your husband, he's always picking on me for things. Yeah. I have no control over where the videos end up. I can fix it. So
what's?
Yeah. Thank you, Misty.
Misty, you were not the only person who did that. Not by a long shot.
Big books are so popular right now. It's either everybody's not reading or everybody's reading and they want something long and distractive.
Yeah. I got the nicest letter from somebody in Italy right after everything started shutting down over there, talking about how grateful they were to have this huge, chunky book that they could distract themselves with. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So, Jen, why don't you tell us about your books, and I'll fix the graphic for Mike.
Okay.
So,
basically, this is a book a series I've been working on for a fairly long time. This always sounds I don't even know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but it's been like over 20 years probably of, just slowly pulling the world building together, and writing and rewriting. But I did not say that there was going to be more than 5. There will be 5 books in this series. Whether there are more series later is not something that I get to decide right now. But anyway, it was kind of my chance to really play and upturn the chosen one trope. This idea that you've got one special person who's going to come in and make everything better, which is the trope I love from fantasy books, all growing up. But at the same time, I felt there was a lot of room there to poke at that. And then also I wanted to write books with really, really big dragons in it. So, this was all an excuse to do that.
Okay, so you just told me you just wrapped up with, this one, you're about to start writing book 4?
I'm about to start writing book 5.
5.
Yeah, I'm about to send in the final edits on book 4. So, yes, which is book 4. I do have confirmation that is going to be called The House of Always.
House of Always.
House of Always.
Okay.
So, I'm really excited about that, and then I'm really excited and weirded out to be about to begin the last book in this series. So, finally get to pull all these threads together and tie it all off.
Can you give us any hints about the new book?
The House of Always?
Oh, no, Memory of Souls.
Oh, sorry. New book for me is not new book for you. Well, I mean, it's basically the continuation. So the first 2 books kind of take place almost simultaneously, right? They're really just within a few days of each other, and then they have backstory they fill in for both of them, either for Kieran or for Janelle, that cover the previous 4 years. And those things take place simultaneously. And then book 3 is kind of moving forward from those 2 books together. So, at the end of book 2, everything had gone completely pear-shaped. And, the big bad dark god in a box, so to speak, is waking up. All the bad things are happening. But there's a plan. There's a thing that they know they have to do. It's fine. They just have to convince the last immortal race to give up their immortality to re-imprison the god, and everything will be fine. Yeah,
it's like that. It's like that Queen song, Who Wants to Live Forever, which was like the theme song for like Highlander.
Right. The Vane do. The Vane want to live forever. So they're not super keen on stepping up to make that sacrifice. And that's a problem, because at the end of book 1, Kieran's mom, and I guess this is spoilers, but what can you do? It's from the first book.
Yeah.
Kieran's mom had headed back to the mantle to try to retake her throne, presumably, and she was in the situation she was in because she had always stated that if it ever happened, she was going to refuse to do the ritual. So, right there's a conflict between, mother and son, where he's like, no, you have to. And, she's going to be going, no, don't have to. So it's,
go ahead.
It's probably going to be, a lot of, people that maybe you have previously been sympathetic to on both sides crossing paths with each other, because everyone's goals don't align. So
we were talking about how your book series is, resurrection is a thing.
Yeah.
So we might be seeing some new people back soon.
Yeah. Not necessarily. I mean, somebody gets mentioned in this book, which is, all through other books. And if you've been reading between the lines, it's like I know a lot of readers were very, very upset when Galen died from book one, and I was like, yeah, but come on, how likely is it that he's going to actually stay dead? Because resurrection in this world is very much tied to privilege and money. Can you afford to have somebody raised? And he comes from privilege and money, so come on, he's probably going to be fine. And indeed, he kind of gets mentioned in book 3 that he's fine. But we're not going to really see Galen per se in this book. He's back in Kor. For the most part, this story actually takes place outside of Kor, with a couple of exceptions. We're heading afield. We're visiting the Vane. We're visiting other lands. So
was on the storyline? It was played. I remember hearing it because I got obsessed with it.
There actually was an album, and I believe one of the songs on that album was that Princess of the Universe was a song off of the album, but it was not the only song off of the album.
Yeah. Well, I just remember it was the TV show Highlander, and it was always playing in the background whenever something sad happened.
Sure, it's an incredibly sad song, especially sung by Freddie Mercury.
And I had the biggest crush on Adrian Paul.
Who didn't?
I know. Even my mother did. It was the only crush we ever agreed on. So she let me put a big old poster of him in my bedroom. Okay, anyway, so what is your favorite chapter in book 3, if you could choose?
Oh gosh. I really can't. I had so much fun writing book 3, and there's so many bits to it that I really, really love, that it would be very difficult for me to point to one chapter and say, this is the one, just because there's so many different points to it that are just like, oh, I love this, and I love this, and I love this. I probably will point to the very end of part 1.
Okay.
Which is when some bad things happen.
So who was your favorite character in this one?
Or
who did you enjoy writing the most?
Well, it was so much fun to go back to writing Talon.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. Talon basically doesn't appear really at all in book 2. But comes back with a vengeance for book 3, and she was just a blast to write. But I would have to say also that there's 3 women who run around doing stuff, Senere, Talia, and Javon, and writing those 3 was just a lot of fun. I really enjoyed their adventures. There were a lot of road trips in book 3, a lot of heading off.
I like a good road trip. How was your experience as a graphic artist affect your writing, for better or for worse?
I think it probably made me more aware of visuals than, plenty of writers are, so it's definitely not a thing that relied on me being a graphic artist, but I definitely find myself, color tends to play a huge part in my work, which should be reasonably obvious, given how I color coded everything. So, the royal houses are color coded. There's lots of color coding that goes on.
Speaking of colors, show us the cake you made.
Oh, well, I just have a slice here.
That's fine.
Slice of cake.
Yep. Celebrate.
So, yes, I thought I should have book launch cake, so I made book launch cake.
Red velvet, bloody.
Red velvet, because white and red are Thane's colors, and this is very much a book about Thane. As the kind of the de facto leader of the 8 Immortals at this point, she's the one who is primarily pushing to have this ritual enacted and set up. And so she's very, very involved in this story. That's the elephant that's on the cover is actually one of Thane's sacred animals that serve her. So that's where that comes from.
What's that? Can you tell us what's going to be on the cover of your next one?
Well, I don't know for sure, but I know what I have asked to be on the cover for the next one, which is a kraken.
Oh, that would be so cool. Okay, so, I vote Tor. I vote kraken.
That's what I want, is a kraken on the cover of book 4.
That'd be so cool.
And then on kraken and some pirates and things. Sorry.
On the release date, we can be like, release the kraken.
See, the opportunities just they write themselves. Mm-hmm. I'm sure Tor's PR are like, yes, do that.
You just need a good looking kraken, because all the drawings, your covers are really beautiful.
You know, the artist Lars Grant West, he does an amazing job on these. You know, he's that very rare, well, not rare, but he most of his work is usually not 3D. Most of his work is 2D, and he does phenomenal just everything he does is great. But his 3D work also blows me away. It's just so good. So if you'd have told me I had 3D art on the cover of my books, I'd be like, no, that's not true. But
okay, so Gideon, hey Gideon, are you working on any projects as palette cleansers, or maybe to plunge to get the primary creative juices flowing again?
I do have a couple of other manuscripts that I occasionally pull out and kind of, you know, look at and put back in the drawer again. But for the most part, I've found that I've tried the shuffling between different projects, and it tends to be more distracting than it is helpful. So honestly, I have mostly not. I mostly tend to just buckle down and focus on one project at a time.
Yeah. When do you start writing your next one?
Next month.
Wow.
Book 5 the writing starts next month. Yeah, it's like I said, I can't believe we're already at book 5. I'm about to wrap this up.
Time flies. Seriously, because I feel like it was just yesterday you came and did a book club reading with us.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. You know, the problem getting in with me doing writing that's kind of fanficky of my world is that, like, I did some of that for book 3 and it ended up making it into the book. So you know, I did it as this sort of there used to be this science fiction fantasy author named Roger Zelazny who would do short story backgrounds as just sort of character exploration, and those stories were never meant to see the light of day. They were just like little vignettes on the side that he would do. And so I was trying out some of those things, and then in a couple of cases it just ended up being something that needed to go into the book. So you know, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. You know, I read fanfic, but I have not done so well in writing fanfic for other properties. So
that was that one right there. Yeah. I'll admit I don't read fan fiction, but mostly because I have a lot of books to read, and I run a bookstore.
Yeah, the TBR pile it's got to be insane.
It's a bookstore. My TBR pile is a bookstore.
Is a bookstore. Yeah, you have.
We have copies of all Jenn's books in stock, and Jenn lives close enough. I love doing events with local authors, so she can sign these. In fact, I have a couple signed on the shelf, and so if you guys want one, we can do that. They're listed on our website. We Support your independent bookstore. It doesn't have to be us. We prefer it to be us, but it could be anybody as long as they're independent. And so yeah, Jenn will sign it to. Nicole, I know who's watching. Say hi to Nicole. She's the first one who said.
Nicole.
She's the first one who said, I need it autographed, and I wanted to say to Nicole. So I love that.
Okay. Well, okay. It will definitely say that. So yeah. We're good, because I live reasonably close by, so it's not a big deal to just drive over.
Yeah. Okay, so what else should we talk about? If you guys have any questions, please feel free to hit them with us. Hit us with them. What was I going to ask you? I had a whole list. I can't find it. It's okay. So, which book? Well, thank you, Gideon. So, okay, which was your favorite book to write so far?
So far, book 3.
3? Yeah.
Yeah, like absolutely no question. Book 3 okay. Was just incredibly fun to write.
Out of all your books, which was the most challenging to write?
Book 4.
Book 4?
Book 4 has been very, very challenging. Book 4 is a lot more psychological than previous books have been. Mm-hmm. And it is a lot more about trauma and recovery. Mm-hmm. And these are things that tend not to, I mean, they're not easy to write about, but they also tend not to be covered a lot in fantasy books. Mm-hmm. You don't really talk about the psychological after effects of having to do horrible things. Mm-hmm. And I decided that I was going to talk about it, kind of tired of fantasy books not doing that, although that is changing, which makes me very, very happy. I think that especially as we're moving forward, a lot of the newer fantasy authors are really being willing to tackle that idea that we're humans and that we do suffer if we do some of these things. It's not just defeated the big bad. I can go home and live happily ever after now, and nothing will ever bother me. That's actually the one thing I will always respect Tolkien for, is that it was not all perfect after they threw the ring in. So I do respect that. In this case, I'm kind of working it out before the ring gets thrown in, but I think that's important too.
So a question I like to ask authors is, do you try to be more original or to deliver what the readers want?
I'm not sure I understand. You mean
so
more?
Do you work for, do you want to try to do something completely different, or what your readers want and so you try to write towards that?
Neither.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm not trying to shock or surprise my readers. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to twist the ending. If somebody comes up to me and says, hey, I figured out you're doing this, mm-hmm. and that is in fact what I'm doing, I'm not going to change it just to try to keep my readers surprised. That's not my goal. But at the same time, I'm also not going to I'm not going to change something just because readers have said, hey, you should, readers develop emotional investments in the characters, which I absolutely want. But I also understand that maybe what a reader wants isn't necessarily what's the best thing for a story. So, there's definitely characters who wouldn't have been killed, wouldn't have gone through bad things if I had been responding to reader comments about those activities. Mm-hmm. So kind of neither,
Yeah. What advice would you give to yourself starting out, that now? What would you tell your younger self?
Don't be in such a rush.
Yeah.
When I was first starting off, and I see this a lot in not necessarily newer published writers, but writers who are just starting to write, the process of writing. You really do, you write your first book and you think, okay, I've written a first book. Now everything is supposed to happen. I'm supposed to have an agent, and I'm supposed to get a publishing contract, and it is all supposed to happen. And if it doesn't immediately happen, then I am justified to take whatever steps I need to make something immediately happen. It's this desire to want to see an immediate action taken, and that may not be the best thing for what you're working on. It might be a good idea to put it away, give it some time, work on something else for a little while, come back to it later. Understand that it doesn't have to be. It probably won't be an immediate, chorus playing and somebody appearing at your front door going, "Congratulations, here's a book contract."
Showing up with a giant check.
Yeah, I really tried to, push things too quickly. Writing is all about persistence, and it's not just it's not just the persistence of getting the book written either. It's also the persistence of understanding that you need to, these things happen in their own time. The first book contract I was ever offered, I turned down because it was not an advantageous contract. It was something that was very much somebody looking to take advantage of the enthusiasm of a new writer, that you would sign anything that said, yes, we want to publish you. And fortunately, I had the advice of people who looked at it and went, don't do that. Don't do that. And I'm really glad I did, because the Tor thing would never have happened otherwise. So,
what was the other? Oh, okay. What does literary success look like to you? Is it a ton of books that are sold, or a bunch of fans, or just followers?
Well, I mean, I think we all, anybody who, there's always the one that goes around, right? That would you rather have all the awards, or would you rather have all the sales?
Yeah. Honestly, I would say the sales.
I have to say, I kind of also would say the sales. The sales make it possible for you to keep writing, and maybe later get awards. But you're not getting paid. It's
also the more the sales, like it seems to me that the more popular you are.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Absolutely. So I mean, but I think that the fan base and the sales kind of go hand in hand. The larger that fan base grows, the more likely it is that when people are asking for recommendations, when people are, my experience is that word of mouth is like the most important thing when it comes to the success of genre fiction. You can have huge advertising campaigns, and certainly Tor has been wonderful about supporting me. But it's been the word of mouth of people telling their friends, or in the case of indie bookstores who've been fantastic, hand selling, people coming in and getting my books recommended to them. That means the world. So I think the fan thing and the book sales thing do kind of support each other.
Misty asked a question, and this is something I always ask, so this was perfect. Which recent books, have you been able to read recently?
Not as much as I would like, because there have really been some amazing books that have come out this year. I actually have a bunch of them right over here. So, so besides, so like, I know nobody needs to be told to read the Gideon books, but
Yes.
read the Gideon books. And I don't have, I have Sam Hawke's City of Lies. I don't have Hollow Crown. That just came out. And let's see. I think I have Tasha Suri's stuff on ebook, so I don't have it up here. If you haven't read, let's see, R.J. Theodore's Salvage and Flotsam are really interesting and wonderful world building, and I love them.
What was that title again? I'm putting links into that.
Flotsam and Salvage.
Okay.
R.J. Theodore, and then K.A. Dorr just finished her trilogy, Chronicles of Gadid, and I adore those. Those are really, really, really good. There's been so much. There's been so much that's been really, really good. I'm currently Kate Elliott's Unconquered Sun, which is her Alexander the Great gender flip space opera, which just right there, like, okay, I'm in. And
is that Unconquerable Sun?
Unconquerable Sun, yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
And there's been so much, which is not a bad thing at all, but I definitely have had a hard time keeping up with it all. And I'm forgetting some, aren't I? I'm sure I am.
That's okay. Well, you know what I love is whenever I do author events, I always look at everybody's bookshelf behind them. So let's take a second look at. Oop, that's me. You don't want.
Well, you see, I've got a couple of my books up, but because you got to do that. But there's a bunch. Let's see. That's.
I see your books. I see the Gideon. I recognize the spine of that big orange one with the dragon.
That's Priory the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. And then A.K. Larkwood's The Unspoken Name, which is fabulous.
We're going to do an event with her.
Oh, fantastic. And then there's a book by Roshni Shani, Gilded Wolves, up there.
Love her.
And Kel Cade's Fate of the Fallen, which I went on tour with Kel, and she's fabulous. And
I think
there's also some nonfiction and
coming out.
Yeah. And then there's a bunch of Dorothy Dunnett, which is not new, not new at all. But
I'm posting Rashani's book here, and then I'll do AJ Lockwood. Okay, so what did you read growing up that influenced you?
Everything.
Everything?
Oh man, I had a miserable childhood. So I had one of those childhoods. Yeah, it was not good. So I had one of those childhoods which I spent in the library, like whenever I could. I didn't realize it until like looking back how weird my childhood was, but I grew up 3 blocks away from a library and 4 independent bookstores. One of whom thought it was adorable, and she would let me like nowadays it's no big deal to go into a bookstore and read, like that's not such a big deal, but back then it kind of was, and she would let me go and read. So I pretty much read like a 300 to 400 page book a day.
Wow.
For my childhood. I literally joke about it, but it's not a joke. I started in the A's. I just worked my way through, which means that some of the authors that I read first were maybe authors that, looked at a more modern lens are a little problematic. I mean, we have our, Asimovs and Clarks and Pierce Anthony.
Mm.
You
I
know,
love Pierce Anthony. The puns.
sure,
Yeah.
but then, like I said, you look back and you go,
Mhm. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily hold up. Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Mhm.
There's some issues.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, when I was really young, one of the very first books I can remember reading was Snow White.
Mm-hmm.
It was this beautiful illustrated edition
Mm-hmm.
of Snow White that should not have been in the children's section.
Yeah.
Somebody got confused and then put in the children's section because it was the illustrated version where, you know, the Wicked Queen gets put into hot iron shoes at the end and forced to dance to death.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 4. That might have had an impact on me. I don't know.
I bet it did. Do you think it's important that aspiring writers read like a lot?
Yeah, I do. I do think it's important because, you know, for one thing, you stop being so precious with the idea that your ideas are this original, unique, you know, thing that must be protected. You know, I get so many people who like, oh, I have an idea for a book, but I won't tell you because I think you're going to steal it from me. Like, I'm not interested in stealing your ideas. That's not how this works. That's absolutely not how this works. You know, I've done exercises. I know plenty of writers who've done exercises where Kat Rambo does this in one of her classes, right? Where she will sit you down. Yeah. She will sit you down and she will give you a list of things that information that you have to convey in a short story. And say, okay, everybody, here's what you have to convey. And I guarantee you every single essay, every single short story that gets turned back in is completely different. Completely different. And that's with identical starting points. So, you know, you lose that when you start to realize that that you've seen the same story done by this many different authors in completely different ways. And they're all great, but you know, how I write a story and how somebody else writes a story are not going to be the same.
I agree. Okay. Yeah. So we have a question. What are you watching on TV right now?
What am I watching on TV right now? I just started watching Black Sails.
Ooh.
Yeah. I just started watching Black Sails. I haven't been watching a ton of TV because I've been
busy, like writing a book.
Focused. Yeah. I gotta kind of, you know, it's when I started this out, 10 months between books seemed like no big deal. And
when you said that, I thought you were a little crazy, but well, especially the size of these books. You're like, I don't have a dust jacket on because it's behind me, but it's so thick.
Yeah. It's going to be 1 million words by the time we're done. It's going to be well over 1 million.
Do you have a word count? Like, how many words are you up to?
Oh, well, right now, I'm probably at 800, counting book 4, probably at 850,000 words.
That's a lot of words.
So it's a lot of words.
That's really impressive.
Book 4 is, I mean, we'll see, but book 4 is shaping up to be actually the biggest of them. So book 1 and 2 were both 212,000 words, like almost down to the word. It was hilarious. Like, I didn't mean to do that. It just happened. But book 3 was a little bit bigger than that. I think 220,000 words.
Wow.
And then
everybody likes a big book right now, so that's perfect. I mean, if you split them up, you would have had, like, I don't know, twice as many books, and it wouldn't be as fun to read them.
and they'd be hard to split up.
Yeah.
Like people tried to convince me before book one came out, when I was first trying to shop around the first book. A lot of beta readers and such would come back and be like, have you thought about splitting these into 2 books? And I was like, no, I haven't thought about that. I'm not gonna. And it turns out that the back and forth is either one of the things that in the footnotes are either one of the things you love about the book or one of the things you hate about the book.
I personally love the footnotes. Video games. Do you play video games?
I do play video games.
Yeah.
I sometimes play too much video games when I should be doing work on other things. But recently I've been playing a lot more strategy games than I used to. I used to play mostly adventure and online MMO, and these days I've been playing more Total War and Civ 6, stuff like that. So
yeah, I don't play video games, but my husband does until like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I come out and yell at him and say, "Go to bed."
Sure. One more turn.
Yeah. I'm almost done.
Yep.
No.
That's always a lie. That's always a lie. Yeah.
Okay. It's like the only time he lies to me is when he said he'll be in bed in a minute and it's 3 a.m. So that's
sure. Okay. Sure. What else have I been playing? I'm looking at my list real quick. A lot of stuff. Well, anyway, it's all. Oh yeah, I was playing RimWorld.
Oh, well, I know that book. Connected.
No, I don't think it's any connection.
No.
Yeah, it's a colony game.
Okay, so because all of this, I remember what I want to talk to you about. You wrote a great article that came out today.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
that was fun. So it was an article for Tor.com on Worldbuilding, Worldbuilding, and just basically kind of summarizing, kind of surface level, but summarizing some of my my beliefs on why world building is important and how it helps set the stage of what your book is, and how I see on occasion, I will see a lot of novice writers making a change and then not thinking through the ramifications of their changes. And so it was just kind of talking about, that's the one.
I spelled a word wrong, but that's okay.
How to make an apple pie, which comes from a quote from Carl Sagan that I've always loved, which is, if you want to make an apple pie, you must first invent the universe. And that's what we do. As writers, we're constantly inventing the universe so we can have our heroes write in on whatever it is they're writing in on, and figuring out what they're going to have for dessert.
One of my regulars actually sent me this article and said, "Oh my gosh, Jenn Lyons wrote an article. You have to read it." So you talking here about how when you started writing your book, you started with landscape, climate, and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Because I'm that kind of nerd. So, I think it's helpful, like to get a sense of place, to get a sense of where you're at and what the climate is like. Kur would not have been what Kur is if it had not been a hot, humid biome with a monsoon season, and and all of those things were kind of created by the map and the currents and the climate that was created for it. And those were choices I made. Certainly, I could have chosen not to have it be more like England or more like, someplace, in upstate New York. But I decided I didn't want that. And once you make that decision, it kind of cascades down into other decisions. Once you say, okay, I have a tropical climate, what's going to grow here? What's the food going to be like? It all starts to build out. And since I have this background of years and years of tabletop RPGs, where it was just sort of assumed that you would, the GM always has to create all this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. I always really enjoyed it. That was part of the fun.
I would imagine you are an amazing dungeon master.
I like to think I'm okay. If anything, if there was ever a problem, it was that I did very, very well with a core group of people who understood. You have to have the right GM for the right players. Mm-hmm. And would it be a huge shock if I said that my tendency is to make stuff that's a little bit political? So, there have been times in campaigns where I had players who were murder hobos who maybe didn't do so well with that idea, especially because I didn't really have a problem with consequences. Mm-hmm. Still don't have a problem with consequences. So if you're going to be a murder hobo, then maybe don't be too shocked when people show up to take care of you. Players don't like that for some reason.
No, I imagine I bet you created a very imaginative world that is very detail orientated.
Well, I like to think so. I mean, Core did start off originally as a tabletop RPG setting. So
really?
Yep, it really did. It was a D&D game. I've tried to make it not look so much like a D&D game since, although if you're looking closely, you can figure it out what's what. And I laugh about the fact that the magic system that currently exists is less like something out of Dungeons and Dragons and far more out of Champions, which is a game that I used to really, really enjoy running for years. So you can totally look, if you're familiar with Champions, you can look through and go, okay, I see how you're written up, and I see how you're written up, and you've got that set up.
We have an event coming up with the creators of Tunnels and Trolls.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So, one of our regulars is a friend of theirs, so I asked through him if we could do it, and we're in the process of scheduling it, but I'm pretty sure it's going to go through. So that'll be fun.
That sounds great. Mm-hmm. I've met and known different people who wrote tabletop RPG games, and it's such an interesting. I mean, depending on where your focus is, right? For some people it's more about mechanics and how that works, and for other people it's more about setting and less about mechanics. Mm-hmm. You bring to it what you want. You take it. It's like the writing process. Different people want to do different things. There's plenty of writers out there that do not want to put the level of world building into their work that I put into mine, and that is totally cool.
So do you think when you're done, you'll do a, Tamara Pierce did it for her world. Like a book just filled with maps and descriptions of landscape and who you'll find where, like an extra book. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I would love that. I would love that. Cool. Certainly I have a fair bit of that material already. Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's just a matter of, it would just be a matter of compiling that with, the maps and things like that.
That'd be so cool. So. Are you listening, Tor? That would be really cool. You should do that.
They could. We'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Everybody listens to me, so.
Hey, enough people say it. Tor's certainly reasonable about these things.
Pretty cool. Okay, so we're coming down to the end here. If anybody has some last minute questions, throw them in the comments. Here. Mike says champions known as superhero system equals superhero role playing.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so once again, we have Jenn's books in stock, and we would love you to buy from us. You don't have to. We prefer you to buy from us, but you could get them from other independent bookstores. Did I mention I'd like you to buy them from us?
I don't know. Should we buy them from you?
Like I know Jenn also does events with Eagle Eye, and they're good friends of ours, so we totally support that decision.
Yes.
But we can get them autographed to you. I have some behind me, and then I have more out on the floor, so we have plenty. Thank you, Jenn, for doing this. So when's the slated date for the next one?
June of next year.
June of next year.
Yep.
Okay. So should we do this again in June of next year?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's put it on the calendar.
Absolutely. I have a terrible feeling we're all still going to be not.
Yeah, I know.
Well, yeah, okay. I think it's still going to need to be a virtual event next year.
Virtual event. I'm fine with that. I really am. And if there's a miracle and we can do this in the store, then we'll do it in the store. And maybe we'll share it live so people can still watch.
Yeah, that would be great. It would be wonderful. And it was really, really lovely to have everybody join us.
Yeah, it was cool to hang out with everybody. I love all the comments. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks again, Jenn, for joining us. You can buy Memory of Souls here at Read It Again. I Read It Again. Or you can buy it at other independent bookstores or Read It Again. Night, everybody. Bye.
Bye.